This video is going to be packed with all kinds of stuff, from updating you on how the pond's filled up to putting plants and animals and fish and all kinds of stuff in this pond. So let's get right into the video. Now, it's been raining out here a lot, and even the backyard pond is absolutely overflowing to the point where you can see where the water's spilling in versus where it meets the dye. So we've been getting a ton of rain, and that has completely filled up the front yard pond. But before I show you that, let's talk about what I did before the pond fully filled up. So the first plan was to collect a lot of these plants, like this one right here, this other one, and that last one. A whole lot has happened since my last video, so I wanted to go ahead and go through all of it. So first things first, you might notice something different when I pan across my yard, and that's the fact that the entire radio tower is gone. So that radio tower was decommissioned, which means I now got about an acre of land back, and I have tons of plans for that, so be on the lookout for that in future videos. But first, we're going to worry about getting all the plants for the pond. So I went ahead and grabbed some of these. Now, these long ones are pretty easy to grab, and they've got nice root systems. They can root in the ground, they can just float on top of the water and have roots hanging down, and they pull out pretty easily. So I got quite a few of these plants, and this one in particular was already growing some little purple roots out of the side of it, so I think it'll be great in the new pond. I don't see any problems with these establishing as long as the pests don't get to them. But I went ahead, grabbed a whole lot of those, and then went to grab some of the other kind of plant. Now, I don't know the names of these plants. If you guys know, then let me know. I know these grow these yellow flowers that are really pretty, and the other ones, I don't know if they grow flowers at all. But this other one, maybe it's a water lettuce. I've heard someone call something similar to that. I'm not sure. But these ones are rooted a little bit more. So when I plant them, they're probably going to float to the top and eventually settle somewhere and root in like these did. Of course, I had another one tangled up in the roots there. But this plant's really pretty. It looks nice, helps clear up the water, and it roots in pretty nicely along the edges. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing with these plants. And then the last one, I kind of had to do a little bit of fishing to get. Now, I sped this up so you didn't have to sit there and watch me miss time and time again trying to hook this stupid stuff. I couldn't really get in the water because I had somewhere to be pretty soon, and I couldn't get all soaking wet. But it's funny how when you're trying to hook grass or weeds, you really can't. And then when you're trying not to, you end up getting a whole salad pulled in. But eventually, I was able to get a few of these strands, and I know that it spreads fairly quickly, and it grows really hardy. So I'm excited to have this in the front pond, and it clears up the water very well. So I went ahead and went to the pond to put it in. I put this piece in probably about 3 or 4 days before, and it was still surviving and thriving, so I knew it was good enough to go ahead and put the rest of the plants in. Now, this is way before all the big rains hit, so the pond is pretty low at this point. It was just high enough for like crawfish and water bugs and maybe some small bluegill and the gar, but it wouldn't be deep enough to have a lot of fish in yet, so I wasn't going to add those in yet. But I went ahead, grabbed these things, and kind of just threw them all around. I knew they were going to float around for a while before they settled, and I'm okay with that. I just wanted to go ahead and get them in the water so they could get started as soon as possible. Don't worry, I know this is like only a little bit. I do go ahead and add a lot more later on. This is just all I had in that front pond. I didn't want to take too much out of the front pond and deplete it of its resources because it's just now starting to really thrive. So I wanted to go ahead and just get what I could. And now it's time for the star of the show. This is the gar. Now, in a short that I made, someone suggested the names Choppy and Jaws. I decided to go with Jaws. I just think it's perfectly fitting for a toothy dinosaur type of fish. So this is Jaws, and he's going to be acclimating to his water. Now, there are tons of bait in this water already with all the water bugs. We've had some frogs come in here and stuff. So there's tons of bait for him, plenty of water. He'll be okay until it fills up. So he's acclimated for about an hour, and it was finally time to release him. Now, we dug this pond specifically for him and some bait fish. So I'm hoping that he really enjoys it. I've seen him a few times since we released him. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any good footage of him. The reflection just was too much for the next few days. But he is still alive. I've seen him the other day, just kind of quick glances as he's chasing water bugs and stuff. So he's doing great. Jaws is definitely going to be the star of the show in a little while. I'm hoping to get him up to like 6-7 foot and have just a monster. But he's got to eat. So I went ahead and set some fish traps in the front pond and went ahead and caught some little bait fish as well as a little crawfish. Now, this crawfish did end up killing one of these bluegills, so I was kind of mad at him. But he's going to be bait, so he's gonna get his justice eventually. First thing in this trap was that crawfish. Now, it's a Louisiana swamp crawfish. These aren't your tiny ones. These ones can get massive. This one is a small one for Louisiana, but he can get real big. So I'm going to toss him in. Hopefully he grows and breeds and all that other stuff. But then I had a couple little baby bluegill. Just toss them in the water. This one right here, I believe it might be a goggle eye or a hybrid or something because it's got that bigger mouth and that different coloration to him. Let me know in the comments, but I think that's what he is. I went ahead and threw him back though. And then the last one I got was this one. Now, he was clawed up by the crawfish. I don't think he made it. He floated on the water for about an hour, and then I think a bird might have come and got him. But, you know, that's nature. Sometimes fish die. I'm just glad that most of these survived, at least for a few days. Eventually going to be eaten by the gar, but that's kind of why they're in here. This is going to be a pond that I use for catfish bait or for just growing up this gar real big. So I did go ahead and walk around the side of it and see if I could see the gar swimming anymore. And that crawfish decided to try and climb back up. Now, the cool thing about these crawfish is they have a little defense mechanism where they'll raise their claws at you, but you just get a little stick and you can fling them back over in the water. You could also grab them behind the head, but I just find it a little more comical to fling them up like that and watch him swim away in the water. But he swam all the way across the pond. He might have gotten out eventually. I didn't really stay out too long to check. But that's pretty much the first other fish that we've put in the pond other than the gar. Real small, good bite size for the gar, except the crawfish. He's probably going to make it to adulthood in this pond. The only predator we're putting in here is the gar. The next day, I went out to the pond to see things, and it was pretty clear. I mean, it was real cloudy still, lots of loose sediment, but you can kind of see the bottom in the shallower areas. You can see crawfish holes, you can see water bugs. It's kind of hard to see in this video because they're so small, but there were tons and tons of water bugs, which is going to be great bait for the bluegill and for the gar. The bigger ones will be good for the gar. But it was time to go ahead and switch to a different project, which is putting some plants on the bank so it doesn't erode. So I went on Walmart and got some cheap clover seed mix or whatever, and I started sprinkling it all over the place. I know you're supposed to use one of those seed applicators or whatever. I just didn't feel like buying it. The good Lord gave me two good hands. I'm going to use them. So went ahead and went all the way around the pond, scattering this everywhere. I used this entire bag for this area. Might have been a little much, but I knew that we were going to be getting lots of rain, and there was a potential that some of it could be washed away. I just want to get as much of it there as possible. We were supposed to have a really clear day. Unfortunately, this was about 10 minutes later. Now, as relaxing as this was to see, and honestly, I really like rainstorms, it was kind of upsetting because I figured all the seeds would probably be washed away. But it did completely top off the pond. It was only about 3 or 4 inches from being at the max. And then the next day, we got enough rain to cover that up as well. So the pond's fully filled now. And I started to look around on the ground, just hoping and praying that there'd still be some seed. And I didn't see any of the green. But luckily, it was all just washed away, and I did see a few different seeds. So I think we're all right as far as some of the seed being there. Will it all grow? Probably not. Will some of it grow? Most likely. I just don't know if it's going to be enough. I'll probably have to end up getting some more seed. We're just going to have to play it by ear and see what happens. And after a few more heavy rainstorms, the pond's now at its maximum point. Every once in a while, we'll get another rain, and it'll kind of spill over a little bit, but it doesn't ever overflow too much. Now it's got like a thin layer of this green stuff on top. I think it's some kind of algae or some kind of floating something. At first I thought it was pollen, but it's not. But those plants are going to help clear up the water eventually. It's just right now it looks kind of like a Shrek swamp or something. But some of those plants survived. You can see them sticking up at the top there. A lot of the plants survived. They're just floating around at different spots. The plant that's right there actually floated from the opposite side of the pond. Over here where I've got some structure, you can see lots of water bugs jittering around the top. The pond's coming along great. I just want to go ahead and add as many fish and plants as possible to make sure this bait pond flourishes. So the first thing I did the next morning was go out and try to catch some more fish to put in there, as well as collect some plants from this local swamp. So I ended up hooking into this little warmouth, goggle eye, whatever you want to call it. Now, usually I wouldn't put this in a pond with a bunch of little bait fish, but these things are still small enough that I don't think they're going to outcompete too much. Plus, I caught this one and one off camera, so I don't think just two of them would take over the entire pond, hopefully. Now, I also set out some fish traps, and this one was loaded with minnows. Sadly, you couldn't see them among the dog food, so I had to separate them, and then I took a video of what it looked like after I was done. So after about an hour, this is how many minnows I had gotten in that trap. So I went ahead and got home. I collected these plants in this net. There's some floating varieties. I know that floating plants tend to clean the water up pretty good and make it real clear. So I kind of want that. I didn't worry about flinging them around in specific spots. I know they're going to float around. And I scooped some of the scum just to get it out of the way. The next thing I did was get the fish unloaded that I'd caught. This is a bigger one that I didn't catch on camera, but he was a little goggle eye. I released him, kind of splashed me in the face on his way down. Then I got the next one. This one was the smaller one that I got on video. He is so pretty. I love the bronze colorations on him, and it just looks like he shines in the sun. But once I released him, I got on to releasing all the minnows. I kind of just dumped them all in here. Didn't feel like getting them one out at a time, but you can kind of see them falling in as I dump the bucket. Anyways, so I went back to that same swamp area and collected a whole bunch of hornwort. Now, hornwort, I believe that's what this is called. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But hornwort aerates the water very well, and it helps clean it up. You can't see in this video, but the water is really clear. You can see pretty far down into it, which is really crazy because this spot gets a lot of current and a lot of sediment moving, but these plants just suck it all up, and they make it real pretty and clean. Once I got home, you've probably seen this footage already from the last video, because I've been working on these videos around the same time. But I caught that red-spotted sunfish, released him, and then threw all these plants in. So I'm going to speed through this footage because I know you've already seen it. But I just wanted to go ahead and show you guys that's where I got this stuff from. The next day would consist of checking a trap and cast netting. So the first thing I did was check these traps. I had them set with cat food, and one of them had these 3 little bluegill or some kind of sunfish. I could be wrong about them being bluegill. But I went ahead and released them in the front pond. You'll see the scum all disappeared overnight after adding those topwater plants. I'm not sure if it's because we had a little bit of rain or what, but it was all completely gone when I went out the next day. I went out to a different boat launch and was throwing out my cast net trying to catch bait. This spot I usually do pretty good catching like mullet and bluegill, but I actually caught a baby crappie there, threw it back out closer to the shore and caught a bluegill. I think that's a bluegill, correct me if I'm wrong. But I was doing pretty good. I'd catch maybe 1 or 2 fish in every net. Not great, but not horrible. I went ahead and pulled the net back in and ended up catching a giant shad. At first, I didn't even think it was a shad because it was so big, but this thing was, I believe, a bull shad. I could be wrong because it is so massive. Just let me know in the comments. Down here, they're usually really small, so I don't know what that was, but I think it was a bull shad. I went ahead and threw in the really shallow area because I saw a lot of bait moving, and I guess it's because this little baby bass was chasing them. Now, we're not going to put him in the front pond, but we'll put him in the back pond. I also caught a little baby mullet in the same net, so we're going to go ahead and scoop them up. Now, some people say you can't keep mullet in fresh water. Other people say it's fine. I've seen ponds that are freshwater that have them, so I'm going to take them home and put them in that front pond. If they die, they'll be crawfish food. These are some baby crappie that I caught as well, and some more mullet. I went ahead and started releasing them in the front pond when I got home. There's the big shad, then the mullet. That's just one of them. These things are real slippery. The next one was the bluegill, and then there was a crappie and a mullet, another mullet. This was the bass. I went ahead and set him aside to bring to the back pond. Another crappie, and one more crappie. And that was the last fish, so I went to the backyard pond and released that baby bass. The next morning, I went out to see how good the quality was in the water, and it was actually starting to clear up really well. We had just gotten a few rainstorms, so I thought it would be full of sediment, but you could actually see a good few inches down. So I figured out that it's finally time for me to start adding some structure. The plan was to get some sticks and to anchor them to this little stump and make it look like tree roots going down so that the fish would have a nice spot for the small fry to go to so they wouldn't get instantly eaten. And that'd be for any fish that breed or even the little minnows. So I'm going to go ahead and put some structure in, and that's what I'm kind of doing right now. Basically, I just took a whole lot of sticks, anchored them into the dirt next to that stump. I kind of want this to emulate a root system underneath the stump and give the fish plenty of spots to hide in and escape from predators, while also providing the predators a good little hunting ground. Now, once I did that, I was completely ready to unveil this pond to the public and to give you guys this video that I've been waiting so long to post. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. I will be adding more plants around the edges and stuff. That grass really didn't seem to grow, so I'm going to have to worry about getting more grass seed or planting something else around the pond. But let me know what you guys would like to see in the front yard pond. The next few videos I've got are going to be pretty cool. I'm going to be doing some videos just catching fish to stock both the front yard and the backyard pond with. So that's bass, catfish, bluegill, sunfish, whatever. And then I'm also going to be doing a couple challenges. I don't want to spoil too many of them. One of them is like a survival challenge, and I'm not going to spoil anything else. So subscribe to the channel so you stay notified. I also do some live streams every now and then, so if you turn the notifications on, you'll definitely be able to know when I'm live, and I answer questions. Sometimes I go fishing and just kind of interact with you guys. I really appreciate you watching the whole video, and as always, Jesus loves you, I love you, and have a great day.